Anna Peterson never expected that a single act of kindness, giving her coat to a stranger, would unravel a web of secrets, corruption, and hidden identities. As she discovers the truth about her past, she must make a choice. Embrace the legacy she never knew or fight for a future built on hope. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Anna Peterson pulled her worn coat tighter as she arranged sweaters on the display rack at Marshall's department store. The heating wasn't working right again, and February in Chicago showed no mercy. At 32, she'd spent the last 5 years working retail, making just enough to keep up with rent on her tiny studio apartment. "Anna!" Sharon Bradley's sharp voice cut through the quiet morning. The store manager stood with her arms crossed, designer outfit perfectly pressed. "Those sweaters were supposed to be done an hour ago. What's taking so long?" "I'm sorry, Mrs. Bradley. I was helping Mrs. Thompson find a dress for her granddaughter's graduation." Sharon rolled her eyes. "That's what Lisa is for. You're supposed to be handling inventory." Anna nodded, holding back a sigh. Lisa, Sharon's niece, spent most of her time texting in the break room, but Anna knew better than to point that out. Through the store's giant display window, Anna watched people hurry past, bundled against the biting wind. A man caught her attention. He sat huddled on a bench, wearing only a thin jacket full of holes. Other shoppers walked right past him, some even crossing the street to avoid getting too close. Anna's heart squeezed. The man reminded her of her father in his final days after the factory closed and everything fell apart. She'd been only 16 when they lost him. "Anna, focus!" Sharon snapped her fingers. "And make sure you watch that man out there. He's been sitting there all morning, probably planning to steal something." But Anna wasn't listening anymore. She watched as the man rubbed his hands together, trying to stay warm. Without thinking, twice she walked to the store entrance. "Where do you think you're going?" Sharon demanded. Anna stepped outside. The cold hit her like a slap, but she didn't hesitate. She walked straight to the man and took off her coat. "Here," she said softly, draping it over his shoulders. "Stay warm." The man looked up, his eyes a striking blue that seemed oddly familiar. His hands trembled as he gripped the coat. "Thank you," he whispered. "But won't you be cold?" Anna smiled. "I work inside. You need it more than I do." Before she could say more, Sharon's voice boomed from the doorway. "Anna Peterson, what do you think you're doing?" "It's my own coat, Mrs. Bradley. I'm not stealing anything." Sharon's face turned red. "Get back inside this instant," Anna started to turn, but the man spoke up. "The young lady was just showing kindness, something this world needs more of. Did I ask for your opinion?" Sharon sneered. "Anna, inside, now." Back in the store, Sharon cornered Anna by the register. "How dare you embarrass this establishment by associating with street people? What will our customers think?" "He's a human being, Mrs. Bradley. It's freezing out there." "Well, now you can go be kind somewhere else. You're fired. Clear out your locker and leave." "What?" "But Mrs. Bradley, security will escort you out if necessary." 30 minutes later, Anna sat on a cold bench in the park across the street, holding her small box of belongings. Her hands shook as she checked her bank account on her phone. She had exactly $342.57 to her name, and rent was due in 2 weeks. "What am I going to do?" she whispered, a tear rolling down her cheek. "You're going to let me make this right," a deep voice answered. Anna looked up. A tall man in an expensive suit stood before her. It took her a moment to recognize him without the shabby jacket and worn cap. It was the same man she'd given her coat to, but he looked completely different. He held her coat carefully over one arm. "I believe this belongs to you," he said, holding it out, along with an apology and an explanation. Anna stared at him, confused. "I don't understand." The man sat down beside her. "My name is Henry Caldwell. I own Caldwell Enterprises." Anna's eyes widened. Everyone knew Caldwell Enterprises. The company owned half the buildings in downtown Chicago. "Every year I spend one day sitting outside my own buildings, watching how people treat those they think have nothing to offer them." He smiled sadly. "In 5 years, you're the first person who's shown genuine kindness without wanting anything in return." "But why?" Henry's expression grew serious. 20 years ago, I was exactly where you thought I was today. Homeless, hopeless, freezing on these same streets. Someone showed me kindness, gave me a chance. That changed everything. I promised myself I'd never forget where I came from. He reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a business card. I've been looking for an executive assistant for the past 6 months. I've interviewed dozens of candidates with impressive resumes and fancy degrees. But what I really need is someone with heart, someone who sees people as people, not opportunities. Anna took the card with trembling fingers. The salary listed made her gasp. I can't. I don't have the experience. You have something better. You have compassion and integrity. Everything else can be learned. He stood up and offered his hand. What do you say? Ready to change your life? Anna looked at the card, then at the store where she'd just lost her job. Sharon Bradley stood in the window, mouth hanging open as she watched the scene unfold. Yes, Anna said firmly, taking Henry's hand. Yes, I am. As Henry helped her into his waiting car, Anna caught a final glimpse of Sharon's shocked face. The same manager who'd fired her for helping someone in need was now watching her drive away with one of the richest men in Chicago. Sometimes, Hannah thought, kindness had a way of coming back to you when you least expected it, but she had no idea just how much her life was about to change, or that this was only the beginning of a story that would test her heart, her strength, and everything she believed in. The next morning, Anna stood in front of the gleaming Caldwell Tower, her heart pounding. The building stretched so high into the sky that she had to tilt her head back to see the top. Through the revolving glass doors, she could see people in expensive suits rushing about their day. You can do this, she whispered to herself, clutching the department store shopping bags Henry had given her yesterday. After offering her the job, he'd insisted on taking her shopping for proper office attire. The price of one outfit was more than she used to make in a week. As she walked through the lobby, a security guard stopped her. May I help you? I'm Anna Peterson. I'm starting today as Mr. Caldwell's executive assistant. The guard's eyebrows shot up, but he checked his list and nodded. Take the express elevator to the top floor. Ms. Richmond is waiting for you. The elevator rode so smoothly, Anna barely felt it move. When the doors opened, she stepped into a world of marble and glass. A stern-looking woman in her 50s stood waiting, her grey hair pulled into a tight bun. Miss Peterson? I'm Victoria Richmond, Head of Human Resources. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I must say your hiring was unusual. Mr. Caldwell has never personally selected an assistant before. I know this is unexpected, Anna started. Indeed, Victoria cut her off. Follow me. As they walked through the office, Anna felt eyes on her from every direction. Whispers followed in their wake. Is that the new assistant? I heard she worked at a department store. Did you see the news? She gave her coat to a homeless man. That homeless man was Henry Caldwell. It must be a publicity stunt. Victoria stopped at a large desk outside an even larger office. This is your workspace. Mr. Caldwell's schedule is on the computer. His coffee order is written down. He has a board meeting in 1 hour. She paused. Do you even know how to use the scheduling software? I'm a quick learner, Anna said firmly. You'll need to be. Victoria's voice dropped lower. Listen carefully, Miss Peterson. Mr. Caldwell may have hired you, but one mistake and you're done. This isn't a charity case. Before Anna could respond, a familiar voice called out, Victoria, I see you've met Anna. Henry Caldwell walked toward them, looking even more imposing in his natural environment. The office seemed to shift around him, everyone standing a little straighter. Yes, sir, I was just explaining our protocols. Excellent. Anna, could you join me in my office? Victoria's lips pressed into a thin line as Anna followed Henry into his office. The room was bigger than Anna's entire apartment, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Don't let Victoria intimidate you, Henry said, sitting behind his desk. She's protective of this company, and of me. She's right, though. I don't have experience with any of this. Experience isn't everything. Tell me, what do you see when you look out these windows? Anna walked to the window. Below, the city stretched out like a maze. I see people, thousands of them all going somewhere, all with their own stories. Henry smiled. Most people see buildings, money, power. You see humanity. That's why you're here. He handed her a thick folder. This is everything you need to know about the company. Study it. And Anna, trust yourself. Just then, the office door burst open. A young woman in designer clothes stormed in, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Daddy, what is this nonsense? Henry sighed. Rebecca, we've talked about knocking. Don't. Change the subject, is it true? You hired some shop girl as your assistant because she gave you a coat. Rebecca turned to Anna, her eyes narrowing. No offense, but this is a multi-billion-dollar company, not a Hallmark movie. Rebecca, Henry's voice carried a warning. Anna is my assistant. That's final. We'll see about that, Rebecca muttered, storming out as quickly as she'd come. Anna's hands trembled slightly. That's your daughter, my youngest. She works in marketing. Henry rubbed his temples. I apologize for her behavior. Rebecca can be how passionate. Mr. Caldwell, Henry, please. Henry, maybe this isn't a good idea. Your daughter's right. I'm not qualified for this. Henry stood up and walked to the window beside her. When I was homeless, a man named James Murphy found me sleeping in an alley. Instead of calling the police, he gave me a job as a janitor in his small real estate office. Everyone told him he was crazy to trust a homeless man. He turned to face her. Today I own that building along with hundreds more, but I never forgot his kindness. What happened to him? A shadow crossed Henry's face. He passed away 5 years ago. His daughter disappeared after the funeral. Nobody knows where she went. He shook his head. The point is, sometimes the people who seem least qualified on paper turn out to be exactly what we need. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Caldwell, the board is waiting. Thank you, Anna. Ready for your first board meeting? Anna took a deep breath. Ready. As they walked to the conference room, Anna noticed a woman watching them from the end of the hallway. She was elegantly dressed with perfectly styled blonde hair, but something in her expression made Anna uneasy. That's Margaret Caldwell, a voice whispered. Anna turned to find a young man beside her, carrying a stack of files. Henry's wife, well, soon-to-be ex-wife. The divorce isn't final yet. And you are? Tom Parker, IT department. Word of advice? Watch out for Margaret. She's not happy about the divorce settlement, and she definitely won't be happy about you. Before Anna could ask what he meant, they reached the conference room. Inside, 12 people in expensive suits sat around a massive table. Victoria Richmond sat near the head, her disapproving gaze following Anna's every move. Everyone, Henry announced, I'd like you to meet my new executive assistant, Anna Peterson. The room fell silent. Anna could feel their judgment, their assumptions, but then she remembered the man on the bench, how everyone had judged him too. How wrong they'd been. She straightened her shoulders and smiled. She might not belong in their world yet, but she knew one thing. Kindness had led her here, and kindness would show her the way forward. What she didn't know was that in the coming weeks, she would need more than kindness to navigate the treacherous waters of corporate power, family drama, and a past that was about to come crashing into her present in ways she could never imagine. 3 weeks into her new job, Anna was starting to find her rhythm. She'd mastered the scheduling software, memorized Henry's coffee preferences, and learned to navigate the complex personalities of the Caldwell Tower. But on this rainy Monday morning, she faced a new challenge. What do you mean, you've cancelled? The Reynolds contract. Margaret Caldwell's voice carried through Henry's closed office door. Anna tried to focus on her computer screen, but it was impossible to ignore the argument. The numbers didn't add up, Henry replied calmly. They were trying to hide their debt. That contract was worth millions. I worked for months to set it up. And now you don't have to. The divorce agreement is clear, Margaret. You're no longer involved in company decisions. The door flew open. Margaret stormed out, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor. She stopped at Anna's desk, her perfectly painted lips curving into a cold smile. So you're the famous Anna, the one everyone's talking about. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Enjoy it while it lasts, dear. Henry's charity. Cases never stick around long. Before Anna could respond, Tom from IT appeared with a stack of papers. Morning, Anna. Those security reports you asked for. He stopped short when he saw Margaret. Mrs. Caldwell. Margaret's expression changed, something flashing in her eyes. "Tom, how's your sister these days?" Tom's face went pale. "She's fine." "Good to hear. Send her my regards." Margaret walked away, leaving a tense silence behind. "You okay?" Anna asked Tom. "Yeah, just..." He shook his head. Margaret has a way of knowing everyone's secrets and using them. The intercom buzzed. "Anna, could you come in, please?" Henry called. Inside the office, Henry stood by the window, looking troubled. "I apologize if Margaret was rude to you." "It's fine, but..." Anna hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did you really cancel the Reynolds contract?" Henry turned to face her, surprised. "What makes you ask that? The numbers in their proposal looked solid. I checked them myself." A smile spread across Henry's face. "You studied the contract?" "I've been studying all of them. I want to understand this business." Henry sat down, gesturing for Anna to do the same. The numbers were solid, too solid, like they were manufactured to look perfect. He paused. "But that's not the real reason. James Murphy, the man who helped me. Reynolds Construction was involved in his death." Anna's breath caught. "What?" "There was never any proof. Just a car accident on a rainy night, right after James discovered something in their financial records, something he was going to report." Henry's hands clenched. "The police called it an accident. I always thought otherwise." "Does Margaret know this?" "No, she just saw a profitable deal." He sighed. "Margaret and I married young. She wanted the lifestyle, I wanted someone to share my success with. We both made mistakes." A knock interrupted them. Rebecca stood in the doorway, looking unusually serious. "Dad, we need to talk. Alone." Anna stood to leave, but Henry held up his hand. "Anna stays. What is it?" Rebecca closed the door. "The board is meeting tomorrow without you." "What? Who called this meeting?" "Uncle Charles. He's worried about the company's direction, especially after the Reynolds deal." Rebecca glanced at Anna. "And other recent decisions." "Henry's brother. Charles was the company's chief financial officer. Anna had only met him once, but she'd noticed how he watched Henry during meetings, like a hawk eyeing its prey. "They can't make decisions without me," Henry said. "I'm the majority shareholder." "Are you?" Rebecca pulled out her phone, showing them a news article. "Because according to this, you've been selling shares, a lot of them." Henry grabbed the phone. His face darkened. "I haven't sold anything." "Well, someone has. Using your authorization. Codes." Just then, Anna's computer pinged with an urgent email. Her heart stopped when she read it. "Henry, you need to see this." The email contained financial documents showing a massive transfer of Caldwell Enterprises shares, all supposedly authorized by Henry, to a shell company named Murphy Holdings LLC. "Murphy," Anna whispered. "Like James Murphy." Henry's face went white. "Call security, lock down all the financial systems now." As Anna reached for the phone, her computer screen suddenly went black. Then every screen in the office did the same. "What's happening?" Rebecca demanded. Tom burst into the office. "We're being hacked. Someone's accessing all our secure files." Henry grabbed his phone, but it was dead too. "Get it to..." The lights went out, plunging the entire floor into darkness. Emergency lights clicked on, casting everything in an eerie red glow. "Dad?" Rebecca's voice shook. "What's going on?" Through the windows, Anna could see other floors in the building going dark, like a wave of shadows climbing the tower. In offices across the floor, people were starting to panic. "Henry," Anna said quietly, "I think I know who might be behind this." Both Henry and Rebecca turned to her. James Murphy's daughter, the one who disappeared after his funeral. What was her name? Henry's eyes widened. Sarah Murphy. And did she work here in IT maybe? Yes, but what does that... Henry stopped. Tom, his sister. As if on cue, the screens flickered back to life, but instead of their normal displays, each one showed the same message. Time for the truth, Henry, about what really happened to my father. In the doorway, Tom stood watching them, his usual friendly demeanor replaced by cold determination. Sarah says hello. The door slammed shut, the electronic lock engaging with a final click. They were trapped. and somewhere in the building, the daughter of the man who had once saved Henry's life was about to take her revenge. Anna looked at her phone. No signal. She turned to the window, watching as other buildings in the financial district began to go dark. This wasn't just about Caldwell Enterprises anymore. This was about the entire city, and somehow she had walked right into the middle of it all. The emergency lights cast red shadows across Henry's office as Anna tried the door again. Still locked. Through the glass walls, they could see other employees evacuating down the emergency stairs, but their office remained sealed, the electronic lock holding firm. "This is ridiculous," Rebecca paced the room. "Can't someone override the system?" "Sarah Murphy controls everything now," Henry said quietly. He sat behind his desk, looking older than Anna had ever seen him. She was always brilliant with computers, just like her father was with numbers. Anna sat down across from him. "Tell us the truth, Henry. What really happened to James Murphy?" Before he could answer, a voice came through the office speakers. "Yes, Henry, tell them." "Sarah?" Henry stood up. "Sarah, please. Let's talk about this." 5 years, Sarah's voice was cold. 5 years I've waited for you to tell the truth. Instead, you built your empire on my father's grave. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? The screens around the office flickered to life, showing security camera footage from years ago. A parking garage. A man walking to his car in the rain. "Dad?" Rebecca whispered. What is this?" "The night my father died," Sarah's voice explained. "Watch carefully." In the grainy footage, James Murphy reached his car. Then another figure appeared, walking quickly toward him. Even in the poor quality video, Anna recognized Margaret Caldwell's elegant posture. Henry sank back into his chair. "Margaret, no." They watched as Margaret and James argued. She handed him something, papers. He read them, shaking his head. The argument grew more heated. "We found this footage a week after the accident," Sarah said. "Buried in the security archives, but when I tried to show the police, it had disappeared, along with all the evidence of Reynolds Construction's fraud that my father had uncovered. I never knew about this footage." Henry's voice shook. "Margaret told me she was home that night." "Of course she did." Sarah laughed bitterly. "And you believed her, just like you believed the Reynolds family when they said their books were clean. Just like you believed the police when they called it an accident." Anna watched Henry carefully. "But you didn't really believe it was an accident, did you? That's why you cancelled the Reynolds contract." "I suspected," Henry admitted. "But I never thought Margaret—" "Tell them the rest," Sarah demanded. "About the shares." Henry looked confused. "I haven't sold any shares." "No, but Margaret has, using your codes, the same codes she used 5 years ago to delete the security footage. After my father caught her helping Reynolds cook their books." Rebecca grabbed her phone, finally getting a signal. "She's right, Dad. Look at these transfers. They all lead back to accounts Margaret controls." "She's been stealing from you for years," Sarah said. "My father found out, and it got him killed. I've spent 5 years gathering evidence, working my way into your systems. Today, everyone learns the truth." Suddenly, Tom's voice came through the speakers. "Sarah, we have a problem. Margaret's trying to access the secure servers from her home office." "Stop her!" "I can't. She's got some kind of override." The lights flickered. The screens went dark, then lit up again. A new message appeared. "System override initiated. Authorization." "Margaret Caldwell Murphy." "Murphy?" Anna gasped. "Was Margaret my stepmother?" Sarah finished. "She married my father when I was a child. After he died, she erased that part of her history. Changed her name back to her first husband's, Caldwell, started fresh." Henry stood up so quickly his chair fell over. "She was James's widow? All this time?" "Now you're catching up," Sarah's voice was bitter. "She married my father for his connections in the real estate business. When she met you, Henry, she saw an even bigger opportunity. The perfect revenge against the homeless man my father chose to help instead of selling his company to Reynolds." The override countdown continued on the screens. Anna noticed something strange about the code scrolling past. "Sarah," she called out, "these aren't just financial records Margaret's trying to access. Look at the file names. Project Phoenix. Operation Blackout." She's right, Tom's voice was urgent. Sarah, there's something bigger going on. Margaret's not just trying to hide evidence. These files, they're about some kind of infrastructure takeover. Power grids, traffic systems, building controls across the city. Through the windows, they could see more buildings going dark. Traffic lights on the streets below began to flash randomly. Oh God, Rebecca breathed. She's not just after the company, she's trying to shut down the whole city. Henry pressed his hands against the glass. Why? What could she possibly gain from chaos? Anna interrupted, the pieces finally clicking together. The perfect cover for the biggest financial fraud in history. While everyone's dealing with a citywide blackout, she can transfer everything, Sarah finished. Company assets, shares, offshore accounts. In the confusion, no one would notice until it's too late. The override countdown reached 0. Every screen in the office displayed the same message.